Ողջույն, սիրելի հայրենակիցներ, մենք այստեղ ենք գտնվում Շարլ Մալասի հետ եւ ցանկանում ենք ներկայացնել եւս մեկ հետաքրքիր կենսագրություն։ Հուսով ենք ձեզ դուր կգա մեր հաղորդումը եւ կարող ենք սկսել։ Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much indeed for having me. As you said, my name is CHARLE Malas. I live in London, England, but I was born in Baghdad, Iraq. I'm of part Armenian, part Christian Palestinian ancestry. My mother is Armenian from Aleppo, Syria. My father is from Jerusalem, and they met in Baghdad, Iraq, where I and my brothers were born. We were there until I was there until the age of around 10 years old when we moved to London on a permanent basis. But we used to shuttle between Baghdad and Jordan, given our Palestinian background. You see, in the eyes of the Arab world, I am Palestinian, but in the eyes of the Armenian world, I am Armenian. And that's a very good thing, but in certain circumstances, it's not very good for me on a personal level. But I'm very proud to be both, and I think I've been the beneficiary of those two cultures in one body.
Where do you live now?
I recently moved back in 2022 to Yerevan, Armenia, and I'm here on a long-term basis with the hope, depending on work, whether I make it my permanent home or not, but that all depends on the work that I'm doing now.
Why did you come in Armenia?
Why?
Yeah.
I'm working on a major project in the north of the country, and I was approached by the Minister of Economy, Mr. Vahan Kerobian, on a concept that I had developed many, many years ago. And that helped me to endeavor to move in order for me to be on the ground to oversee the project itself. The project is very new and it's from the ground up, so doing it online would have been extremely difficult. But with the help of the ministry, I relocated to Armenia to oversee the project.
The earthquake 99 after months.
The 1988 earthquake is when the community in London, the Armenian community in London, found out of what my brothers and I were doing. We owned a freight forwarding company called Skyport Air Freight. Later became Skyport Logistics, and it's from our warehouse where the actual earthquake relief began, where the entire community having spread the word by mouth, and I must add from there it all kicked off, and suddenly we were inundated with the entire community coming to our warehouse, bringing all manner of goods, clothing, medicine, food, whatever, and we used our skill and our warehouse materials to pack everything for preparation to be air freighted on a British Airways flight to Yerevan.
Why Gumri project, dry project?
The dry port project is an idea that I had shortly after my father passed away in 2010. We were very close to Dad. We loved him dearly, and it was one of my ways of trying to forget and to deal with my sorrow. So I basically began to look at the world map and see where I can apply the skills that I gained over the years in developing port management and port designs. Armenia wasn't on my radar. Actually, I was looking at Ethiopia, I looked at Qatar, I even looked at Uzbekistan. But for some reason, eventually Armenia came into my radar, and I looked at it much more carefully. And it's where I began to structure the infrastructure work, where the railways are, where the roads are. And I'm not the type of guy who wants to reinvent the wheel. I always believe in making the best use of what you have already. And that's where I looked at, zoned in to Gumri, where there's a huge and a very good infrastructure cluster. And that's where then the design concept began to flourish.
And how did it come to this project?
Well, like I said, I mean, I realized that I needed to do something. I wanted to be able to contribute somehow to Armenia, the country. I mean, I worked as a volunteer in the community. Was in the executive committee, and I became part of the hockey partsu at the church. And then I was elected to the Armenian Community Church Council, where we did a lot of work. I think I was elected twice, 2 terms. And there I realized that I served my community, I served my church, and now I wanted to serve my country. And despite the fact that I have no affiliation with Armenia, it still feels like my country. I still want to believe that it is my country, and the people in it are my people. I am who they are. And then on that note, I looked at the design, and that's where it all began to come together. And my drive towards introducing it to the country started back in 2011, but a greater push happened in 2014. Which is just before when I started my post as operations manager for a Middle East country in Iraq. But nothing developed from that point onwards. It kind of fell on deaf ears, if you like.
What is involved in this project?
The project itself is a dry port project. In Armenian now we call it Chor Navahankist. Some call it Samak Navahankist. I think both have the same meaning, I believe. But the concept, the dry port concept itself is just like any other port. No matter where you go in the world, when you come across a port, you see all the cranes, you see all the trucks and equipment. The dry port is operated in exactly the same way. The only difference is that there is no seacoast. What replaces the ships is the railway tracks and the railway lines, which is the best way and the most efficient and cost-effective way of transporting mass number of containers inland. The dry port concept began many, many years ago, over 30 years ago, to relieve pressure off seacoast ports when they were becoming very congested, very, very busy, and there wasn't enough room to hold containers. But it began to evolve and develop into something much more than that. However, the dry port concept for Armenia is too much. There's just too much. It's too big for Armenia in itself based on its current industrial capacity. So in order for us to make the dry port concept viable, I also designed and attached to it an industrial park. So you've got a combination of a dry port, which is all the handling takes place of the goods, but also directly connected to it is an industrial park where there will be the factories, assembly lines, processing factories, and also at the same time, food processing facilities. All of these culminates in utilizing the existing raw material that is in Armenia, which is effectively agriculture and high IT and pharmaceuticals, and developing it there. That industrial park, what is manufactured and produced in the industrial park, then feeds into the dry port for export, because the facility is designed to be export concentric. It's not designed for the local market.
What is the source of this project?
The source of this project is me. Just realizing that I wanted to do something, as I said, to forget my father's passing. And I just applied to it and I worked at it. It took me a good 3 to 4 months to complete the entire design. It started in 2010 and I finished it in 2011. But there's been various iterations. So I'm now on my 5th iteration of the design. And I apply my own skills in designing it. So I use a CAD software to do the entire design work as well as the feasibility work. I did the pre-feasibility when I was here for the ministry. I'm fairly proud of it because pre-feasibilities usually take 2 to 3 months to complete, but I completed it in a month and a half, and I was fairly happy with the result, and so were those who read the pre-feasibility report. And it was on those bases that the government in Armenia adopted the project as their own, and now they are driving through with it.
And what benefits in Armenia, the financial and employment?
The benefits to Armenia is huge. The benefits will evolve and increase as time goes by. But within the first 5 years, we expect GDP contribution of the dry port alone to be at around 0.92%, which is well within the estimated GDP contribution that I estimated to be between 0.7 and 1.2%. Employment capabilities of introduction is around between 20 to 30,000 employment, which will, in reality, with families relocating, that could almost double the current population of Gumri, since the facility is going to be in the Shirak area. I can tell you the specifics in a moment. But at the same time, it will also bring in a huge amount of FDI, foreign direct investments, based on high net worth individuals or corporations around the world who would use Armenia as their base, since the facility is going to be zero rated, which means effectively there's no tax to pay, and there's zero VAT to pay on everything that you produce because it is for export. That in itself will attract FDI, and with a population which is gaining a lot of strength in education and a good, strong, young, educated individuals who are now beginning to complete their universities, they will have positions to walk into. That in itself brings a lot of talent, both imported talent, repatriation, and local talent to contribute to the work.
What is the importance of dry project for us, for our country?
The importance, in my view, and this is a personal opinion, Armenia lacks specific value. History and culture has its place and it has its own value. But in today's world market, countries will ask, what are you contributing to the world? And this, irrespective of Armenia's strategic geographic location in terms of the north-south corridor, transportation corridor, this is a way of actually contributing, albeit in a small way, to Armenia's value as to what it can contribute. So in reality, not only is it going to bring a lot of economic growth to the region, particularly the Shirak-Mars region, but you will find that a lot of offshoot businesses are going to benefit a great deal out of it. And that's going to contribute to the tax income of the country. And in the same way, then you'll find a lot of flourishing communities to grow even more. So farmers will be growing more food and more products, and all of these contribute to the country's GDP growth, and that will continue. The GDP growth that we've seen so far has been unprecedented in Armenia's history. But in order for you to maintain that and sustain that, then this is one of the ways that you can do it. And we already have a lot of interest from all of it from overseas. And the idea here is to tell the communities, particularly the diaspora communities, come in, put in, whether an SME or large factory, put in your factories. There is absolute hope. There is strength in what we're doing. The transportation cluster will give you that cost effectiveness and the efficiency that you need in order for you to export your goods. And we are aiming at export concentric movements here. The local market isn't the target. And we already have a lot of interest from a lot of major blue chip globals who are now studying how they can come in and position themselves in the facility.
Okay. And how did you see your future in Armenia?
I like that. I'd like Armenia to be my permanent home. I'd like it to be where I retire. But I know that Armenia is a place which is going to face difficulties. But when I look back at our history that whatever history I've read about ourselves, we are, for thousands of years, we've had nothing but difficulties, but we've always overcome them. And I believe that the upcoming difficulties that we're going to face, I think we're going to be okay. I think we are going to overcome them. And I think after that, it's going to be an amazing country to live in. It's going to be a country with an incredible future, where it will eventually show its strength and capabilities to be very peaceful with its neighbors, and also help its neighbors to contribute to both their growth and the regional growth, and not just to always be competitive in the way that they are right now.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.